Well, this is a season for both the birth of Christ and also the birth of Sri Sarada Devi. Her actual birth date this year will fall on December 14th. Um, and that we, as always we do, celebrated on Kalpataru Day along with Sri Ramakrishna's um, wonderful bestowal of grace on the devotees. So when we stop to think about Sarada Devi, who is she? The best way to try to understand who she is how she embodies various states of consciousness. And so today's topic is Sarada Devi, the embodiment of Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, and Advaita, the three different levels of consciousness and states of consciousness. The key to Sarada Devi's interior life, its depth and its magnitude, lies first and foremost in her identity and her relationship with Sri Ramakrishna, the avatar. To even attempt to study her spiritual experiences, ranging from aspects of Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, and Advaita, that's dualism, qualified non-dualism, and non-dualism, we must first go to the source, her relationship with Ramakrishna as a spiritual consort of an avatar, and all that that means. First, I suggest that Sarada Devi's spiritual realms as divine consort and how they may relate to the confines of particular philosophical schools circumscribe the depth of her inner realms, which go far beyond the human capacity of even the great mystics. For example, Sri Ramakrishna attained the culmination of his Rama Bhava, the division of Sita. But why Sita, you might ask? Sarada Devi herself once disclosed, Sita is an aspect of Brahma. This statement is essential in attempting to fathom the divine relationship of the avatar and the consort, not only of Sita, but of Sarada Devi herself. For example, while on pilgrimage to Rameshwaram, she beheld the image of Shiva and remarked to Sarala, her companion, "It is just as I have left it," referring to a previous incarnation as Sita. Sri Ramakrishna also divulged his relationship to Sarada Devi as Sita. So what does this mean? Just as Sita is an aspect of Lord Rama by extension, so also is Sarada Devi an aspect of Sri Ramakrishna, both of whom previously manifested in the Rama incarnation. As avatar and his divine court consort, previously as Lord Rama and Sita, and later as Sri Ramakrishna and Sarada Devi, they are in fact two sides of the same coin, as Swami Premananda, direct disciple of Ramakrishna, once declared. So to me, Sarada Devi's choice of the word aspect means that the consort of the avatar does not experience her divine relationship with the avatar solely within the spiritual experiences of Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, and Advaita. Sita, being an aspect of Lord Rama, means she was a part of him, seated in the vast realm of his heart. Likewise, Sarada Devi, being an inseparable aspect of Ramakrishna, was as his divine spouse, seated in his heart. That is why Ramakrishna promised, Sarada Devi, at the last moment I shall lead by the hand all those who come to you. Once Mother divulged Know for certain that the Master and I are one. Don't see us separately. The Master himself had told her he would dwell in her body in a subtle form. Furthermore, Sarada Devi's spiritual power emanated not only from her identity as the consort of Sri Ramakrishna and the consort of his previous incarnations of Rama and Krishna, but as the goddess herself of many aspects. For example, she appeared to the devotee Chandramohan Datta as Mother Kali, when one day while visiting the Ubodhi, he was instructed by Swami Shuddhananda, who later became president of the order, to ask Holy Mother for liberation. I used to hear the story from Swami Yesheshananda, Holy Mother's disciples. When he went upstairs to her room to prostrate to her and before her, he then looked up beneath her veil and was struck to behold the face of Mother Kali, and he ran from the room. Also read in the life of Sarada Devi when she was chased by the mad Harish. She then, as she herself recounted, she stood firm, assuming my own form. And as Swami Gombirananda related in his biography of Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, she became Bhagala, one of the 10 Mahavidyas, to punish the demon in the person of Harish. Also, on rare occasions, Sarada Devi herself avowed her own divinity. When once a woman devotee asked Sarada Devi, "Why cannot we realize that you are the goddess?" And the mother replied, "Can all and sundry do so, my dear?" And when Kedar once said, "Mother, no one will care for the goddess Shashti, Sitala, etc. after you," the mother replied, "Why should they not? They are only my own parts." As the mother of all, she divulged, "My children are spread all over the world." She manifested this all-embracing power of love, Ananda, to all, irrespective of caste, culture, reputation, or station in life. Now, the limited tools, resources, and knowledge at my disposal, I shall try to examine the depth and range Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, and Advaita experiences Sarada Devi embodied. The Master's vast array of spiritual experiences is evidence enough of his avatarhood, manifesting states of consciousness ranging from dualism to the initial prolonged period and later experiences of non-dualism. These states are well chronicled in the Master's life and by himself and recorded by his direct disciples. We can read these experiences in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and in the Lila Prasanga by Swami Saradananda, as well as other accounts by his direct disciples. How then does his superhuman breadth and depth spiritual experience relate to those of his chosen bride and consort, Sarada Devi? Now, no event in Sri Ramakrishna's life was performed without a purpose. He was married to Sarada when he was 24 years old, and a storm of renunciation was raging within him. He told Hridoy and other family members that it was preordained he would marry the daughter of Ramchandra Upadhyay of Dharmapati. And in doing so, he provided Sarada Devi with the unfathomable depth of spiritual training and darshan, a transmittable fund of knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna invested her with sacred mantras to bring her mind down from various exalted states she was in. In her biographies, we read how he taught her various spiritual disciplines, kirtan, meditation, samadhi, and even the knowledge of Brahman. But he also saw in his wife the veritable manifestation of the Divine Mother and worshipped her as the goddess Shodashi, the ultimate fruition of his training. Swami Nikhilananda, disciple of Holy Mother and scholar, explained, Sarada Devi surrendered at her feet, Sri Ramakrishna surrendered at her feet the fruit of his austerities and spiritual endeavors. Sarada Devi became conscious of a new power and was awarded a special status rare in the spiritual history of the world. Sri Ramakrishna recognized Sarada Devi as, quote, a real partner in life, the full share of his spiritual glory, a teacher to complete the task he had begun. In other words, by her very relationship to Sri Ramakrishna as consort and co-partner in spiritual life, and as a recipient of the Shodashi Puja, Sarada Devi was invested with the power and capacity to experience the various spiritual realms her husband Sri Ramakrishna had first experienced and explored. It was broadly defined by Hindu philosophers, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Advaita. Okay then. How did Sarada Devi embody the spiritual moods of the three schools of philosophy? What we do know is that throughout her life, Sarada Devi worshipped the Master as her chosen deity and built her own life by following his example. We cannot claim that she embraced the particular philosophies of Madhva, Ramanuja, or even Shankara, because she was not a philosopher. Furthermore, she transcended philosophy. As the consort of Sri Ramakrishna, an avatar, and the embodiment of the Mother Goddess, she was endowed with a God-given spiritual power and capacity that most certainly surpassed that of the great Madhva, Ramanuja, and even Shankara. Realized souls, no doubt, but not aside the same extraordinary divine status as that of Sarada Devi. Third, Sarada Devi by nature kept her spiritual life hidden to a great extent. However, one finds from available descriptions that she attained a variety of superconscious states and such a depth of God consciousness that resemble, in part, realizations stemming from those three schools of philosophy. From her teachings, we're also able to cull substantial clues of what philosophical realms she may have entered. Okay, so first, let's see how dualism, the core attribute of Dvaita, manifested in Holy Mother's life. Sarada Devi's dualistic spiritual practices and routine are well documented. During her early life at Dakshineshwar, she lived on the ground floor of the Nahabad. After finishing her bath before 4 a.m., Mother sat for meditation because Sri Ramakrishna insisted on meditation. Then she performed a daily dualistic puja, sat for japa and meditation for about 1.5 hours. In the evening, she lit the lamps, waved the incense burner before the deities, and again sat for meditation. Dualistic devotions. Throughout her life, she performed a simple puja daily. From Sarada Devi's own account, it appears that the first real worship of the Master originated with herself, just as the worship of Chaitanya originated with his wife, Vishnupriya, who had the who had the first image of her consort carved out of margosa wood and had it installed in a shrine. Mother herself said that the first copy of the photo of the Master that is now worshipped throughout the world became so black that it had to be rejected and was given to a Brahmin in Dakshineshwar at his request. Sometime later, when the Brahmin left Dakshineshwar, he left the Master's photo with Holy Mother, who placed it with her other deities and worshipped it daily with flowers and food. That's the beginning. One day, Ramakrishna entered the Nahabat and saw his photo there and said to the mother, "What's all this that you are doing here?" Upon hearing the Master's voice, Mother, who was cooking under the staircase, came out and noticed that the Master was offering bell leaves and other items that were set aside there for the worship. Since the Brahmin never returned to claim the photo, Mother kept it with her as her constant companion. Though it was dark at first, gradually it became lighter. Mother sometimes traveled. She kept the photo of the Master with her, made it a point to offer something to it every day. There was no formality in her worship, but one of her biographers recorded, at the time of worship, it seemed as though she was sitting in the Master's living presence and acting accordingly with the greatest intimacy. At about 9 o'clock every morning in the Nahabat, in the middle of the room, she placed the Master's photo before her and offered a simple worship. In the absence of flowers, she offered tulsi leaves and Ganges water. Then she would sit in meditation with her hands in her lap. She seemed to lose ordinary consciousness, after which she made obeisance to the Master and placed the photo back in its original position. Again, in the evening, she offered his photo luchi, chapati, vegetable curry, milk, and molasses. What then were her dualistic experiences? Later in her life, when she was leaving Kolpura, Calcutta, for the last time, Brahmachari Sarada noticed that she was wrapping the Master's photo with a cloth after worship and saying, "Get up, it's time to start." When at Jarumbati, when finishing the Master's worship before Jagadatri worship, she spoke to the Master's photo, "Do finish your meal early, or I shall have to go there." She actually saw him tasting the food. In this connection, Sarada Devi in her later life instructed Sarala Devi at the Nivedita school. Consider the Master as your very own and say, "Come, sit, take, eat." And you should think that he has come, is seated, and is eating. What need is there of mantras and such formalities with regard to one's own? Of course, she taught some mantras and also a little ceremonial. When a devotee showed much eagerness for these, this she accommodated. Swami Gambhirananda, in his biography, Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, wrote that early in her life, quote, "Mother often had her moods of rapt absorption, but we do not know whether along with that self-forgetfulness, there was any external expression known to herself or others. Perhaps such spiritual ecstasy was kept in check because of the master's condemnation of it. See the self-control. But one day, Mother requested Yoganma, her attendant, pray to him, meaning Sri Ramakrishna, that I might have a little spiritual ecstasy. Yoganma asked the master, but he did not respond. However, when Yoganma returned to Sarada, who was engaged in worship, she saw her laughing and weeping, tears flowing from her eyes, until she finally became silent and merged in samadhi. Due to the fact that this occurred early on in Sarada Devi's life, during her puja, and in answer to her prayers, this points perhaps to a Dvaitic or to a Vishishta Dvaitic experience. It's impossible to tell, but it resulted from a Dvaitic approach. In this way, Sri Ramakrishna awakened the dormant power in young Sarada. Though by and large, she tried to keep her spiritual life hidden. As Sarada Devi aged, more incidents of her spiritual experiences surfaced, now to speak of her manifestations of divine power. Sarada Devi received many visions of Sri Ramakrishna, her chosen ideal. For example, after his Mahasamadhi, when Sarada started to remove her bracelets, Sri Ramakrishna appeared in his body, just as it was before his disease, and took hold of her hands and said, "Have I died that you are removing the signs of the married woman from your wrists?" She then desisted from doing so. When on pilgrimage in Varanasi after the master's passing, her spiritual fervor was so highly kindled in the Vishwanath temple that she divulged, "The master had led me by the hand from the temple." Then again in Ayodhya, while on a train with her arm donned with the amulet Sri Ramakrishna used to wear, resting near the window of her railway compartment, the master appeared and said, "Mind you that the amulet stays with you. See that it is not lost." It's also interesting to note that while on pilgrimage to Puri after Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi, Sarada Devi carried the photo of Ramakrishna under her cloth in order to show him Lord Jagannath, because she believed that the picture and its prototype were the same. In other words, to her, Sri Ramakrishna's photo was living. These are some examples of Sarada Devi's dualistic experiences. What then were her dualistic teachings? To some devotees, she taught prayer by sharing her example. She said, "When I was in Vrindavan, I used to visit Bankabahari and pray to him. 'Your form is bent, but your mind is straight. Kindly straighten the windings of my mind.'" To others, worship. She instructed one sannyasini of another order. "From time out of mind, innumerable people have worshipped images and thus attained spiritual knowledge. Can you deny this fact? Brahman exists everywhere. Prophets and incarnations are born to show benighted humanity their way. They give different instructions to suit different temperaments." And for others, karma yoga. She taught work keeps the body strong and the mind pure. One can cut the bond of attachment by performing action, and then comes non-attachment. One should not live without performing action, even for a moment. About japa and meditation, she taught, But japa, meditation, and prayer are especially needed. One should sit up at least in the morning and evening. When one sits up for a while in the evening, there comes to one's mind for consideration what one has done throughout the day. Then one has to compare the state of mind one has today with what one had yesterday. Then one should meditate on one's chosen deity as one goes on doing japa. How can you know how you are conducting yourself unless you have japa and meditation every morning and evening, side by side with work? How then did Vishishtadvaita manifest in Sarada Devi's life? Qualified non-dualism. That means feeling the divine in one's heart. Which of her spiritual experiences reveal aspects of that particular realm? And there are many different realms within that particular school. After Sri Ramakrishna's passing, Sarada Devi went on pilgrimage, and there were times when her spiritual mood intensified. In the Gopi Gita, when Sri Krishna disappeared from his sport with the gopis, overpowered with grief, they began to long for him and came to eventually identify mentally with the object of their love, so much so that they began impersonating him. In Vrindavan, Mother now began to experience a similar self-absorption. Forgetful, she sometimes wandered across the vast sandy shore to the Yamuna and had to be searched out. Swami Gomberananda, revered scholar, monk, and 11th president of the Ramakrishna order, pondered. One does not know. She might have then thought of herself as Radha, the sweetheart of Krishna, and of Sri Ramakrishna as Krishna, and was thus lost in the bliss of union in the Vrindavan of her heart. It is said that she once told a devotee, I indeed am Radha. In this connection, Sarada Devi may well have been experiencing elements of a state what Ramanuja defined as Vishishtadvaita. So to try to get inside the state of ecstasy, let's turn briefly to Ramanuja's philosophy. Unlike Shankara, Ramanujan denied absolute knowledge. Instead, he emphasized that knowledge is always relative. There is always a distinction between the subject and the object. According to Swami Prabhupananda's spiritual heritage of India, Ramanuja was at heart a bhakta who preserved his distinction from Brahman in order to enjoy the bliss of divine love. The Swami goes on. Brahman is related to the cosmos as the soul is related to the body. As the man has a soul and a body, and as the soul, though distinct from the body, yet controls and guides it, lives in it, and uses it as an instrument, similarly, Brahman is the soul of the universe, the source and sustenance of all beings within it, and the rule over all. The concept of the Antaryami, or inner controller, describes Brahman's immanent presence within all beings and the universe. For example, in the Gopi Gita, when Sri Krishna disappeared from his sport with the gopis, overpowered with grief, they began to long for him and came to eventually identify mentally with the object of their love, so much so that they began impersonating him. And this is all in a divine state of consciousness. we find similarities of such ecstatic behavior in Holy Mother's life. Swami Yogananda, who was Holy Mother's attendant during her 1886-1887 pilgrimage to Vrindavan after Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi, related an in-depth description of her mystic union with Sri Ramakrishna, and I will read it to you. One day her women companions found her absorbed in deep samadhi. They uttered the name of the Lord in her ears and tried to bring her mind down. I repeated the name of Sri Ramakrishna with all my strength. Then the mother seemed to return to the ordinary sense plane. Swami went on. During such periods of ecstasy, her manner of speech, her voice, her way of taking food, her way of walking, and her general behavior were exactly like those of the Master. We have heard that in deep meditation, the worshiper and the worshipped become one. The scriptures mention a spiritual state known as Tadatnya Bhava, being at one with God. I've read in the Bhagavati how the gopis, unable to bear separation from Krishna, became so absorbed in the thought of him that for the moment they forgot their own individualities and behaved as though they were Krishna. In the same manner, the mother too forgot her own separate existence and acted just like the Master, feeling her oneness with him. Swami Yogananda continues. When I asked her some complex questions about spiritual matters shortly after her state of samadhi, she replied in a God-intoxicated mood, very much like Sri Ramakrishna. That is in the same manner characteristic of the Master, even using his easy style of metaphors and parables. We were all surprised to see the spirit of Sri Ramakrishna united with hers. It was unique. We then realized that the Master and Mother were one in essence, though appearing in separate forms. Holy Mother passed nearly 2 days in that superconscious state. So with Sarada Devi as divine consort, not only do we see a line of demarcation in states of divine moods between her and other mystics in terms of intensity, depth, and duration of a spiritual mood, but also in variety. Shortly after this culmination of this particular Vishishta Dvaitam Bhava with the Master as her beloved, she then, according to Swami Yogananda, entered, quote, a serene, blissful mood, expressing an eagerness to visit the various temples of Vrindavan for darshan, or to visit the various holy spots on the banks of the Yamuna, associated with the divine sport of Krishna and the gopis. She was then in such a blissful state of mind that at times her yearning for Krishna's presence and her utterance for his name with intense love reminded us of Radha. Yogananda then divulged, I have heard from her woman companions that the mother at times spoke frankly of herself as Radha. Sarada Devi, his divine consort, also became absorbed in the mood of Sita. As previously mentioned, Sarada Devi remembered her incarnation as Sita. Just as Sita was eternally established in Lord Rama's heart, so also was Sarada Devi established in Ramakrishna's heart, and he in hers. Beyond a doubt, the caliber of this mystic union is of a far more exalted degree even than that of a sadhaka's mystic union in the Vishishtadvaita tradition. What are her Vishishtadvaitic teachings? Swami Vivekananda stated, this omnipresent one in the Antaryaman, the inner controller, is present in every atom, is through and through, ota prota, as the Sanskrit word goes, penetrating your body, mind, and soul. How can you lose heart? I may be a little bubble of water, and you may be a mountain-high wave. Never mind. Infinite ocean is the background of me as well as of you. At one time, Sarada Devi explained, the master is the basis of all that we are. He is the ideal. You will never take a false step if you hold on to him under all circumstances. She identified the master with all the deities and all creation, even an ant. And her conception of him transcended all forms and ascended to the formless Brahman. So Mother placed Sri Ramakrishna above herself. She also on occasion divulged her identity alongside the master. Once Swami Tanmayananda worshipped the mother's feet at Jaramati and placed them over his head. The mother forbade him to do so, explaining that the master stays in the head. God himself sits on the 1,000-petaled lotus. The Swami asked, if the master is God himself, who then are you? Without hesitation, she replied, who else should I be? I too am the Divine Mother. Sarada Devi as Divine Consort also identified herself as the Antaryami in all, that means the inner controller, the indweller in all, including animals. One cat always sought refuge near her, but often stole food. Sarada Devi say, to steal is its dharma. Who is there always to feed it lovingly? One day, Gyan, her monastic attendant, became irritated with the cat, slapped the cat to the ground. Sarada Devi was pained. Scold the cat, but don't beat it, she said. Please feed it regularly and see that it doesn't go to any other house to steal food. Don't beat the cats, for even in them am I. How could she identify as the Antaryami in all? As divine consort, Sarada Devi revealed yet another unfathomable dimension of mystic identity when she stated, what is Sri Ramakrishna? That I am. Indeed, again, sometimes in ecstasy, even her mannerisms resembled those of Ramakrishna. So identified was she with him in that state. She even placed her own photograph by the side of the masters at Kualpar and worshipped both. But to Swami Kapileshwarananda, she revealed the inner realm of this mystic identity. She said, mark you, I haven't given you the mantra. It's the master who has done so. How then did the Advaita Vedanta state manifest in Holy Mother's life? What were her Advaitic experiences? Swami Turiyananda once told Swami Prabhavananda, my guru, Sarada Devi was always established in the Vishuddha chakra, even when performing the most menial household tasks. Describing this state, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we read, Ramlal sang the lines. Above in the throat in a 16-petal lotus flower of smoky hue, within the petals of this flower there lies concealed a subtle space, transcending which one sees at length the universe in space dissolve. The master said to M, listen, this is known as the vision of Satchidananda, the formless Brahman. The Kundalini rising above the Vishuddha chakra enables one to see everything as Akasha. And said, yes, sir. The master then said, one attains the absolute by going beyond the universe and its created beings conjured up by Maya. By passing beyond the nada, one goes into samadhi. By repeating Om, one goes beyond the nada and attains samadhi. Are there examples of her transcending the Vishuddha chakra? In May 1888, Holy Mother was about 35 years old. She stayed with Govind Ma and Golap Ma at Nilambar Babu's house in Vellore on the western bank of the Ganges, opposite the Kasipur cremation ground where Sri Ramakrishna's body was buried. It was cremated. Swamis Yogananda and Adbhutananda were her attendants. In Sri Sarada Devi and her divine play, we read, during this period, Holy Mother experienced samadhi quite often. Ma recalled, one evening, Holy Mother, Golap Ma, and I were meditating on the roof. When my meditation was over, I noticed that Mother was still absorbed in meditation, motionless in samadhi. After a long time, she regained some outer consciousness and said, O Yogin, where are my hands? Where are my feet? I pressed her limbs and said, here are your hands and feet. It took Holy Mother a long time to regain consciousness of her body. This kind of experience has been described as Nirvikalpa Samadhi, in which one completely transcends body consciousness and the world, experiencing complete identity with Brahman. Regarding her spiritual ecstasies during that period, she once said to a disciple, at that time my mind became absorbed in lights, red, blue, and other colors. My body would not have survived long if these experiences had continued. The fact of the matter is that according to her biographer, she identified the master with all the deities and all creation, even an ant, and her conception of him transcended all forms and ascended to the formless Brahman. How then could the mother live and move in a mundane world when her mind soared to such great heights? Swami Gambhirananda addressed this problem in his biography of Sarada Devi. For as the master resorted to such petty desires as, I shall smoke, I shall drink water, in order to chain down to the common plane his mind that ever tried to be lost in transcendental heights, the mother accepted Ratu, keeping within limitations a mind that would otherwise expand and merge in the infinity and beyond. This may appear as a bondage, he wrote, but on closer observation, we find it as a proof of the limitless willpower of the mother. The master gave up gold, whose touch caused him pain. The mother touched it with her head under the belief that it was nothing but the goddess of wealth and good fortune in another form. Rejection of a thing as non-Brahman and acceptance of it as Brahman are both fundamentally indicative of enlightenment and non-covetousness. What were Sarada Devi's Advaitic teachings? 1 month, Swami Bimalananda doubted whether to reside at Advaita Ashrama as he favored the path of dualism. He appealed by letter to Sarada Devi, and she replied from Jagramati, September 1902. One who is your guru, Sri Ramakrishna, he is Advaita. Since you are all his disciples, you too are Advaitans. I can emphatically say you are surely Advaita Vadins. Sarada Devi's life was her message. Same-sightedness affected her actions, which overrode caste exclusivism and Brahmanical orthodoxy of her age. None will be rejected. Sarada Devi, as a universal mother and Vedanta guru, vowed. She accepted Amjad, the Muslim bandit, prostitutes, alcoholics, untouchables, and foreigners, at a time when orthodoxy was the social standard and such demonstrations of oneness met with harsh criticism. Based on Viveka and her Advaitic knowledge of oneness, she delivered her famous Advaitic proclamation that will live on eternally. I tell you one thing, she said, if you want peace of mind, do not find fault with others. Rather see your own faults. Learn to make the world your own. No one is a stranger, my child. The whole world is your own. Now, this teaching is undoubtedly Advaitic, but it is more. What Sri Ramakrishna called the Vijnana state, beyond the state of Jnana, a more profound realization of Advaita that seems evident from his own words. And he said, Jnana is like reaching the roof of a house by leaving the steps behind, one by one. But Vijnana, the Vijnani who is more intimately acquainted with Brahman, realizes that the steps are made of the same materials as the roof, bricks, lime, and brick dust. That which is realized intuitively as Brahman, through the eliminating process of not this, is then found to have become the universe and all its living beings. Sarada Devi saw that everything is Brahman, that even the subtle duality between Brahman and Maya disappears. There is no more contradiction between the world and Brahman. All is Brahman. Sarada Devi's teaching points to the truth that if and when we experience Brahman within, we will then see that same reality without. The world of appearances and apparent separation disappears. We realize the whole world is our own in the deepest sense. That, to me, it would seem to be the Advaita Vijnana, which Sri Ramakrishna called the higher state. And now, friends, we're in for a real